Imagine what you could unlock if you truly understood how your community moves, engages, and evolves over time. My name is Martin Sampson. I want to thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is Unlocking Data Decision Making in the Recreation and Park Sector. I'm the grateful CEO of the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. It's a pleasure to co-host this session alongside our partners and friends at ActiveXchange. I'm going to introduce Alex in a moment. Before we dive into today's content, I just want to take a few moments to introduce you to CPRA, highlight a couple of exciting initiatives that we're working on, and explain why we believe this conversation about data has the power to just absolutely transform how we serve our communities. So first thing to note is CPRA is the national voice for recreation and parks in Canada. Our purpose is to really champion the role that you, the recreation and park sector, play in building healthy, vibrant, and resilient communities. We absolutely believe in the sector as a vital public good. And in order to support this vision and to advance it, we're leading a number of national projects that I just want to tell you about. The first one is the Framework for Recreation in Canada Renewal. We are looking very carefully about how to build the framework for the future. We want your perspective on that. So we have a number of ways that you can engage. I'm going to share in a moment a slide deck that will give you a couple of QR codes so you can download the surveys. And then the second initiative is the 2025 Inclusive Green Spaces Symposium, which we're hosting in Saskatchewan in June. That's a really exciting conversation, and we also have a survey there that we would really welcome your perspective on. So in a moment, I'm going to share a couple of slides before I hand it over to my colleague Alex, and you grab the QR codes, but it would be great for you to know a little bit more about these things and engage in them. Your voice matters, and we really want your perspective on the record. Today's webinar connects directly with that work. We know that data is much more than numbers, right? It's the foundation for equity, for strategy, for impact. We live in a world of data-led decision making at the moment, and I think our sector is a little bit behind the curve, which is why we're investing so much time and energy in getting us up to standard so that folks like you can make really smart decisions about the finite resources that you have. Data-led decision making is here and it's here to stay, and that's why we're so excited to be working with ActiveX to be bringing you the infrastructure database and all of the related functionality that comes with it. Today we're going to talk a little bit about understanding usage patterns, movement data, equity, diversity, and how we're ensuring that people are included in all of these important services. And we'll also start talking about how we quantify the value the social value of recreation and of parks, which helps you demonstrate impact, attract funding, and make the case for continued investment in our sector. I'm going to introduce you to Alex Burrows in a moment from ActiveX, and he'll take us through all these features, share examples, and help you see what's possible when we put data to work for our communities. But before I hand it to Alex, and in the spirit of making this, really truly engaging discussion, we want to pose a question for you, a live sort of survey that we invite you to offer your opinion on. And the question is this: what are the biggest challenges facing our industry today, and where can data play a role? So I believe that Denise is going to display a poll, and you will have a number of minutes to complete that. Then I'll show you those slides I mentioned a moment ago, and then I will invite Alex to really get to the meat of the matter, which is talking about the power you can unlock with data. Denise, how are we doing with that? Oh, there it is. Look at that. I always love it when technology works. So what are the biggest challenges facing our industry today, and where can data play a role? We invite you to fill that in. Make your selection right on the screen. Oh, look at that. People are jumping in. Excellent. Funding looks like it's out in front. And by the way, it's great to see everyone. We got quite a few people on the call and they're still streaming in. So it's lovely that there's so much interest in this. Oh, and while we're doing this, also invite you folks at any time to pose questions um, or comments. Thank you, Scott, or comments in the chat, and we will get to those as we can. So it looks like we're pretty good on that. And as promised, I'm going to show you a couple of slides here quickly. They're QR codes, so you can grab the link. We do not advise that you complete these surveys on your phone. They require a desktop, but at least you'll have the link. So I'm going to share my screen here briefly. Let me get back. Where is that? You think I would know how to do this at this stage? Okay, so share the screen. I'll share that. And I'm going to end that poll. Oh, we can share results as well so you folks can see the results. Funding looks like the clear winner. We can get into that in a moment. I'm sure Alex is going to be able to talk to that. And then I think I have my whole screen shared up here. So can you let us know in the chat if you can see these QR codes, folks? There's a couple of them. So this one is the Canadian Inclusive Green Spaces Symposium. We want you to know more about that. And there's a survey here linked. This is talking all about parks in advance of the symposium I mentioned. And this is how you can have your say in the framework for recreation in Canada. There's the English survey links. Leave that up for a moment. Grab those QR codes. And there are the French survey links. We're going to drop these links into the chat as well. Denise, I'll ask you to do that when you have a moment, please. And of course, happy to answer any questions about any and all of this. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to introduce you to the inimitable Alex Burrows. Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Martin, and good job with the poll, Denise. It's always a little bit nervous waiting to see whether something flashes up. So great to see so many kind of familiar names on the attendee list as well, because we've obviously had lots of conversations with many municipalities and other types of organisations over the last year, 18 months around the national database and kind of where it's going. Just for context, I'm Alex. I'm the founder of ActiveXchange. We're a team of about 20 people. We're passionate about kind of sport, community recreation, but ultimately we're a bunch of data geeks. We live and breathe how we can make or kind of unlock more value from data for organizations. And ultimately that's often from kind of social value, but also commercial value. But it's really for more active and healthy communities. And we believe there's a huge amount of potential within the data that's held within organizations or within communities, but also that can be brought kind of down into those communities. And that's where this kind of power of a network really comes to the fore. And just seeing kind of what's happened with the national database over the last couple of years, about 400 organizations are now involved. It's really given it that kind of step forwards to start to unlock a lot of other data sets and potential, which we'll touch on today. So yeah, just for background, so our team, we're based in Edmonton. That's where a lot of our data analysts are based. We work in Australia and the UK. And actually a lot of what we've done, or kind of what we're going to talk about today, we've already done in Australia and the UK in terms of working with partners similar to CPRA and building out these kind of national, not just data sets, but kind of ecosystems, and helping to make smarter decisions with about 1,000 organizations at the moment. So if I go to share my screen, hopefully this works, and I jump across and a slide shows. Yep, shout if not. So today's kind of really around it's the value of data and what's kind of how the national database is providing a foundation to a number of other layers that can be added to that to ultimately unlock funding and investment so organizations can reach further and activate more communities. And it's the power of this network that's starting to form. So I've got a couple of slides. I'll log in, I'll show a little bit of the national database and where it's got to, and then I'll kind of come back and look at some of the other modules that kind of link to the national database. And any questions as we go through, just ping them into the chat. Martin will interrupt me kind of where relevant, and we'll cover those off as well. So I suppose it's worth just recapping where this has all come from. I think I first was contacted by CPRA when we were actually presenting to about was a couple of hundred local governments, municipalities over in Australia, because we had run the national database there for a little while. It's up to about 60,000 sites, and a similar thing. It's starting to kind of build into this facility planning, data intelligence kind of toolkit. But we got going kind of working on a Canadian version. There's a project steering group around how it was set up and the types of information we were asking for. That led to then kind of bringing it all together and starting to capture data on sites and then facilities within sites. We started to bring in community profiling data sets. Kind of everything was kind of all in one place, and you could see where different socioeconomic indicators were compared to your facilities. Up to kind of today, there's about 400 organizations involved. We're actually very close to about 10,000 sites as it stands. And then within sites, you might have multiple facilities. So there's 12,500 facilities. But this is really just the starting point. And there's certain things you can do with this data already, and it's convenient. It means we're not starting audits from scratch each time. But it's then how do we add data sets in and around those facilities to really understand what the need is of the local community and how best we're providing for that need, and what we're delivering at the moment, and how we can unlock further funding sources to reach even further. We often talk about kind of what's working, what's not, so what next, and kind of right offer, right place, right time. And the national database, in terms of this journey, and as I say, we've done it similarly in the UK and Australia, this really is a good starting point, a foundation to layering on. And it's great, over the last year or so, starting to see loads of organizations come on, upload data, change that data over time from small municipalities to some of the larger cities to national sports as well. So it's that idea of kind of crowdsourcing information all into one place. So when you log in today, and there's a free account for anyone linked to the CPRA, you'd log in, you'd see lots of dots on a map, you'd see site information, facilities attached to sites, you would see community profiling data sets. There's a free movement mapping layer, which just shows kind of activity trends, but is really relevant if you're working in kind of open spaces. And then there's the analytics dashboard, which I'll show shortly when I log in. But it's not, creating something like this isn't simple. There's a lot of kind of work behind the scenes. If you've got multiple organizations adding data in, so you've got Tennis Canada adding all of their data, you've got Ontario Hockey adding their information, you've got hundreds of municipalities uploading data, we've got provinces adding some of their previous data. You need ways of ingesting that information first of all, but then making sure there's a really good kind of data integrity, data quality to it. So spotting things like duplications, making sure that data fields are used in the correct way, so there is some kind of confidence about the information. So that's where a lot of the focus has been over the last year. And some of it can be automated, but some of it is manual as well. But it's got to this point, and there's kind of momentum kind of building. And now over the last few months, we've been talking to organizations about where they want to take this next. Some smaller municipalities are talking about using it as a basic kind of asset management tool. Some organizations, consultants, municipalities want to export data and model that data themselves. Some organizations are wanting to link it to their kind of public resident-facing websites, so residents can find the nearest tennis courts around them. So there's a number of ideas which we're considering actually, and calls like this are really helpful for shaping kind of where next. But I've put a big question or a big statement at the bottom. No one wakes up in the morning going, wow, I'd love to enter information into a database. It just doesn't happen, sadly. Otherwise, our lives would be a lot easier. So it's about how can we add other layers to this and bring tools in over the top of these facilities, which really drive value for the end user to make it worthwhile adding information in the first place. And that's what we'll cover off in the rest of this call. So if I'm going to just break from this slightly, and I'm going to log into the database. I'm conscious probably not everyone's logged in, although I would have thought most people on this call are familiar with this. So hopefully you can see the website and the login page. So I'm just going to log into an example account. So actually, before I go in here, so you kind of log in here, you can add users, you've got maps, you've got dashboards, which will become a little bit more clear what they're about. If I just go to the map section, so this is what 10,000 dots looks like on a map of Canada. It's easier to see if we do it in kind of clusters like this. So if I come down here, I'm just going to pick a site here. It's the Tumbler Ridge Community Centre. I've not been there, but I'm sure it's lovely. So what we've got here is we've got site level information that's either being inputted on a site-by-site basis or kind of a bulk upload working with our data team. And then so you kind of got the basic headline information about where the site is, the name of the site, who runs it, any additional services at the facility, sorry, at the site. And then within the site, you've got individual facilities. So you've got a rink, you've got an aquatic center, you've got the gym, and you've got kind of usages against those types of facilities. So it's just a way of storing kind of straightforward audit information all in one place. What it means is when you come to do different projects each time, you're not always starting from scratch or scrambling around for information. So it saves time and money. If I just go into this site a little bit more, what we've got is, if you've used any geographic platforms before, we've got lots of different layers around kind of boundaries of kind of the municipality and down to dissemination area level. You can add in different population layers. If I zoom out a little bit, it'll be a little bit clearer. So females, 60 to 74 as an example, but all the way through to kind of health indicators and levels of deprivation and even kind of risk of inactivity that we model, which is often useful. So I'm just going to come back in there. So that kind of community profiling information we try and keep up to date on behalf of the network, so you have the relevant information all in one place. And just while I'm in here, I'm just going to show what the movement activity layer looks like. So this, I'll go into this in more detail shortly, but this is using GPS from 21 million devices across Canada to look at where activity is happening by the hour. So if I look here, this is March 2025, it's weekdays, it's midday, and I can kind of switch across to weekends. And this is the town of Tumbler, as we were looking at before. We've got the recreation centre there. And I can start to see how movement and activity is starting to happen and kind of move across into the kind of the trails and the park to the west. This movement layer covers all of Canada. It's free, it's part of the national database. It's just a good starting point for knowing where communities are or where they aren't at different times. There's an extension to this to kind of really kind of track who those people are, which I'll also get into. But just I wanted to show what's in play at the moment in terms of the free tool, because there's a lot in here. The final part is just showing I can filter for types of sites. So if I go to all space types and I want to see, let's say, rinks across Canada, there's 800 odd rinks, or I want to see usages and I want to see aquatic, where you can undertake aquatic activities. That's what that looks like. So you can see you can start to layer up a picture, whether it's local or national. And then with that data, we're getting to a point now where it's never going to be 100% complete just by its nature, but there's a good amount in there to start to get some headline benchmarks. So here, if I go to, this is the dashboard that goes alongside this. If I go to, there's a big, obviously, ongoing discussion around access to ice at the moment across Canada. So if I select all the different types of, this is the surface drop down here, but I could do it by facility type or usage. So if I look at types of ice, I go down to provincial level, you can see Ontario is a lot higher than any others. And then you've got a number of facilities, you might have multiple kind of rinks within sites. So I get a view there. But then actually, if I go down to the bottom here and I start to look at, okay, how many, oh, if I can move the zoom thing out of the way, minimize that. I start to look at how many rinks per 10,000 people. It gives me a slightly different view. It's not just Toronto, Ontario that's kind of highest. So you can start to see just a very basic headline analytical kind of function where the value is in this. And I think importantly, the time saving. But the main point is this is just an audit. This has never been about kind of building a full national picture. This is about what value we can then create within each municipality and locally, which I'm going to go on to in a sec. Just check in there, Martin. Are there any questions on the national database?
Let me just see. There's one in the Q&A. Let me see. Let's go there. Oh, sorry. No, I don't have any questions posed in the chat, but I will let you know if one comes up, Alex. But while I'm talking, I just want to tell you folks a little bit about my own journey with the database. There was a time where I thought, well, the value of this thing is if we are able to get 90% of all facilities and I've come to realize that that's actually not the case, that we already have enough data in the database, that there is real value in some of the aggregate numbers. But what I'm learning is that there's immediate value to any jurisdiction through the free account to sign up, get your data loaded, and start immediately extracting value out of the database. So, I do think we have critical mass of data to start extrapolating some larger ideas, as Alex is talking about. But the big learning for me over the last while is just realizing how much value there is to the individual user if just their data is input. So keep that in mind. It's not about having a complete data set. We know we're never going to have a complete data set. It's about having a good data set that allows us to extrapolate some things across the country, but at the same time offering direct value to anyone who signs up to a free account. So we encourage you to do that. Alex, there is a question posed in the chat that I see now, and it's from Deanna, I think, Deanna Manzer, who's asking, what's the source for the movement data? Who puts this data together?
Yeah, we acquire data, movement data from multiple providers. Some are in North America, some are elsewhere. And we continually seek out, that's kind of a headline point for all of this, I guess, is we continually seek out the most relevant, complete, accurate data sets. And because we're working now on, there's a network of 400 organizations, we're able to find economies of scale in terms of bringing that kind of into place. So one of the providers there, if you talk about kind of the red heat mapping, is a company called Mapbox, who I'll get into that actually. That's in a couple of slides' time. It will become a little bit more apparent about kind of all of where this kind of information comes from. Ultimately, it's coming from thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of apps that are sharing GPS information in a data compliant way. And we are sourcing that information. It's one type of data set, and I'll go on to kind of the different types of data sets we source, bring together, and combine on behalf of the network to turn into actionable, influential kind of insights, which might be a good time if I just kind of click on, so it'll answer some of that question as well. So I've mentioned some of this before. We are who ActiveXchange is. We're a data and technology partner of CPRA, and it's really the focus. And it's interesting that poll, number one was around funding. It's all about the value of data and how we can unlock that for organizations. If you can get more funding, more investment in, you can reach further. So what can we do with your existing data and other data sets to enable that? That's the name of the game. So building on that national database, and I've kind of numbered that number one, that is the starting point. That's kind of places, and there's facilities or spaces, because there's parks and trails in there as well. Where do we go? Number two is about understanding people, and whether that's members, registered members that go into recreation facilities, or it's just general activity within residents, and it leads into some of that movement analysis, movement data. So it obviously links back to places. What you're doing is you're applying you're adding that kind of information on top of the places to build up a joined up view across your area, because often obviously municipalities will have a network of outdoor indoor facilities that are looking to reach into all parts of the resident community. So we can start to build up that joined up picture. By then also bringing additional data sets in, we can convert that information on people and who's being active into powerful EDI, equity of access, social value statistics that really influence funders. And we've seen that around the world. In the UK, what we were doing around social value unlocked $100 million through COVID, going directly into aquatic centres. So it's about leveraging data that already exists there to drive more funding through better partnerships, which ultimately leads to kind of reinvestment back into the industry, and we can all do more and reach further. So there's kind of a cycle here, and it's connected, and hopefully that will come through in the kind of the slides I go through now. So what we've got in terms of the picture and the kind of melting pot of the data sources that come together, you've got registered activity data. We work with recreation centres, municipalities around the world to track millions of people every week and the activity they're doing. In Canada, we work specifically with organizations such as Amelia, Daxco, Explore, Active Network. There's a number of others as well. It's just only so many logos you can fit on a slide to allow the movement of that data. So it's not just stuck in a registration system within rec facilities. We don't need all the data, but there's certain bits that can be brought out that can be turned into really powerful insights that can help organizations reach further. As you've seen, we invest and we bring together relevant household and resident data, some of which is paid for. Overall, we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to bring that forward so the recreation network can make better use of it and connect it with other data sources. I'll get into movement data shortly, and we do work around events with brands as well. But it's the key part here from a data insight intelligence perspective is how you join these data dots and how you don't just use these data sets in silo, which often organizations tend to do. That allows us to create market insights around what's working, what would work well in your area, but also some forecasting models around, okay, if I did this instead of this, what's the likely outcome? How many more people am I going to get active? What's the impact? What's the social value? You need a combination of these data sets. So I'm just going to go through a few of them that link to the national database. This is about connecting other data sets to that foundation that is the national database. So on that number 2 point, people connecting movement data. So we bring that data in from multiple sources. In total, it covers about 21 million devices. If you stand there with a clipboard in the park counting people through, it usually runs at about 90% accuracy. It's tens of thousands of apps. It's GPS, so it doesn't need cell coverage. So we work with lots of national parks and trails and so on, because it's really effective in outdoor areas. What's really important here is because we are purely focused on the sport and community recreation industry, we have a growing network of what we call ground truths, actual known counts that, whether it's a footfall counter or a venue counter, whatever it might be, to make sure that the movement data is really tightly validated, because you get billions of pings from all these apps and you need it to align closely with the type of movement and activity in different types of settings. Otherwise, you can be way off with kind of visit estimates. And that's the key bit here, is we're really kind of focused within this sector to make the information, first of all, bring together on behalf of a network the most complete data set, but then make it as accurate as possible. So,
Alex, can
yep.
I jump in just quickly? We got a couple of questions, and then I'm going to preemptively pose a question that I'm sure is on many people's minds. So the first one is privacy. Talk a little bit about privacy.
Yeah, so this only comes from apps where the users have given permission to share the location, and it's all anonymized and aggregated. So we don't know whose phone it is, who they are. It's used globally around the world. You see it used huge, significantly in like retail and things when it comes to planning stores. It just hasn't been, to a certain extent, democratized within kind of recreation and sport, mainly because it's huge data sets, but also it's quite expensive, and you need to kind of tie in with other bits of information that I'll touch upon. So it's that's really important. That's the number one thing for us with all of this, not just movement data, is the ensuring there's the privacy compliance is in place.
Right, and just to be clear, you are compliant on all laws and regulations on this, fully compliant on it, and the anonymity of the data is a core tenet of what we're
Yeah.
doing here, right? It's aggregate. Okay, perfect. So that's one question. I have a couple other questions. One from Jennifer Neumann, who's asking, can the data set be used to establish benchmarks or averages for service delivery, such as how many pools, parks, arenas, etc., per population level, and baseline service delivery for small communities? So can you use it to establish benchmarks and averages?
Yeah, so that's probably more of a question to the national database. And when I was kind of clicking into that dashboard, and we had a number of, was it ice rinks per 10,000 population, that's where you'd use that type of information. When it comes to movement data and some of the other things, that's maybe looking at levels of activity within types of settings and types of communities and what you should be looking to achieve. and I'll come on to kind of EDI metrics and what good looks like in terms of engaging and being representative of your whole community in terms of providing a service. But yeah, just in terms of provision, the national database is starting to get to that level where it can be used for benchmarks.
Okay, great. And I have one more question in the chat, Alex, from Scott, who's asking, there's increasing desire from community and community organizations to have open source mapping to do their own analysis around equity, food, recreation, transportation, that kind of thing. So ESRI has these open source sites that can help do that. Do you have the ability to add food, transportation, etc., to the mix?
Yeah, we actually okay, we specialize in sport and recreation, but I mean in the UK, one of the largest advertising agencies that runs billboards uses our service. We work with other retailers in other places who use some of this. So just because I'm showing it on a mountain in Banff, this technology can be used for any other type of thing. We do a lot around kind of active transport and so the kind of sustainability side as well. Um, so yes, there's part of this I haven't got it in this slide deck, but where you can look at a site and know how people are the routes people are coming into it and kind of what modes of transport. Again, it's got a range of applications. But yeah, it's about trying to democratize that, I guess, within this sector. Shall I push on? I'm just conscious of time.
Yeah, push on. I have two more questions in the queue, but we'll get to those. Why don't you keep going, and I'll pose these other questions in a moment.
Yeah, I might answer them. We'll see. So this is what I was showing before. This is an example of Banff, where you can go by the hour. The red heat mapping, more red is where there's more devices, more activity. The mapping is free within the current national database, registered through CPRA. There's a paid service through CPRA, but where you can then select one or multiple of these grids, and you can get the ongoing trends across the last few years and by the hour, and you can slice and dice the data. This is used widely by municipalities, but also parks, trails. It just helps you understand where the community is. Because what I'll come on to next is analyzing specific sites, but often you could be missing certain things. We've got organizations that want to protect certain habitats and biodiversity, and this helps them understand where people are going or maybe where they shouldn't be going. So there's a relevance just to this, and it covers all of Canada. And you can kind of, yeah, by the day, kind of month, hour, you can track it. It also pulls into down the bottom right, pulls into an automated email, so you can set up colleagues in different departments to get notifications on any change in use of any location. So it's ultimately about bringing organizations closer to where their communities are at different points in time. We believe that will help them focus their resources and get more from less. That makes sense. The second part is, so this first part is what we call activity trends. The second part is what we call visit reports. So this is an example from the city of Barrie. This is a playground that was redone by Canadian Tire and their Jumpstart program. So this is Painswick Park. And here you see we've selected a specific area. And then down the bottom, I've got daily visits. I know the average time spent there was just under 30 minutes at the top right, and the average distance traveled to get there was 19 kilometers. I can then break that down by different days of week, times of day, how long were people there, weekdays, weekends, and so on. What was interesting here was we also, part of the feature within this looks at where people go before and after they visit different places and spaces. And actually Canadian Tire as a store was on the list, and I think about 150 people over about 3 months actually went on to visit a Canadian Tire store. Fortunately, that was a long way down compared to like McDonald's and Costco and others. But in terms of that, I'm working with commercial partners, sponsorship, understanding the behavior of your visitors and your audience is pretty powerful, and this starts to give a picture of that. This is another example from the city of Waterloo. It's their winter festival that they run. So this, you see the kind of the purple lines down the bottom. That's it runs for a few days, and this is over the last 5 years. Each one of those spikes is a year each time. So what they wanted to understand was the movement around the facility more from an operational perspective, which obviously this shows, but then also where do people come from? And we can show that at a kind of municipality level. And this shows 33% came from Waterloo, but this event drove quite a lot of inward tourism. So again, another really useful bit of insight to take to the other department and kind of try and bring kind of additional funding forwards. Again, all of this linked back to the national database, linked back to sites and having information in the first place on those sites. We're just kind of layering on top. This same information of where visitors come from, we get at a very local level. That allows us to add all of that other kind of community profiling information to it to get a good idea of the types of people that are visiting each location. So here we've got the likely age distribution, religion, ethnicity, all the way through to household income. And you can filter individual sites, or you might have a network of 100 facilities that you're working on, or looking to improve, or looking to develop to engage a more diverse type of the community. And we're kind of doubling down in this space. This is an area that we're doing a lot of work in around, call it community reach, equity of access, and I'll come on to this in terms of recreation data as well. A couple of other examples. Just been working with Tennis Canada, tracking 100 facilities where they're creating year-round courts and putting millions of pounds in there. So the key for them was showing the EDI side of this in order to support unlock funding on a rolling basis, but also this same type of data, I've not got it in this deck, that can be used and tailored for sponsorship to show that, okay, our visitors really align with insurance brands or these types of restaurant chains or whatever it might be, to start to unlock those kind of other funding partnerships. So again, it's about getting more money into those that deliver community recreation. A couple of examples from the UK. This was a client in London who used the analysis to understand or better plan their car parking. So it delivered an extra £60,000 per site in annual revenue, but importantly, it also unlocked $700,000 in terms of a grant, in terms of updating the technology, so they could charge different amounts at different times, and that went down better with the resident population, but also protected revenue levels. So it's just knowing where people are at different points in time and where they're coming from. Just another example from the UK, another sports, Basketball England. As part of the Commonwealth Games Legacy Fund, they invested into 11 basketball courts in some of the most deprived areas of the city. What this did was it attracted $3 million worth of additional capital funding because they could talk to who was now using those. And often it's people who wouldn't typically use your recreation facilities, and that if you're not providing these types of services, otherwise there's a high likelihood they'd be inactive as well. So to government, there's a high value to engage them. And just the final part of the movement side and where this is going, and again, I suppose being fortunate to work just within this industry, is we have a data science team based over in Edmonton who are starting to look at AI within this data. We're tracking thousands of sites across Canada and other countries. So you can start to say, okay, I've got this location here. Should I put some more toilets in? Should I put a BMX track in? And then the system using AI looks at thousands of other examples and similar types of communities and says, okay, well, if you did that, you'd only get maybe another 86 visits per week. But actually, have you thought about putting a skate park in, improving the field and resurfacing? Because we think that for a similar type of community gets you over 2,000 visits. What you're doing is you're lifting up intelligence from across a network, and you're then kind of applying it locally to each setting. And we're all moving forwards as a network in order to get communities more active and funding to go further and to influence funding partners in a more effective way. So that's movement data. And again, the real point here is it all comes back to the national database. Everything there is linked to a facility or a site, but it's about getting a really deep understanding locally of what's going on.
So Alex, seems like we're at a national juncture. There's a natural sort of break. There's quite a few questions. You want me to pose some of them?
Yeah, maybe a couple, and then we'll kind of regroup, and because I've got this, I'll get through this final section afterwards,
Yeah,
and then
that's
we can make any, yeah.
perfect. So one I think you've already answered. So Kenny was asking, do you have examples of how this has helped areas receive funding? I think we just went through some of that. Kenny, if you have any more questions about that, by all means, pose them. Craig Cameron asks, does the movement data track speed or other metrics that could allow you to infer the type of activity being done?
Yeah, well, we use it to infer the mode of transport to get to sites, but within sites, no, we haven't done that. And it's worth also saying we can't split out specific apps. You might have, Strava or other ones that are used for specific activities. We can't do that again because of data privacy.
That's privacy issue. Okay. And then another question from an anonymous attendee. What's the spatial resolution of the movement activity layer? How frequent is this layer updated?
Wow. Okay. So the red heat mapping that I showed before, which is kind of a nationwide activity, what we call activity trends, that's automatically updated every month. It's usually live within a few days of the start of the month. The other data sets you can break it down kind of hourly or daily. It goes a lot more granular. Again, most clients tend to update it every month, and we usually run it with 12 months historic data, like the park example I showed there. But there's a bit more flexibility with that.
Okay, two quick ones I think here. The first one from Jennifer is, are these examples, the Barrie and Waterloo examples you just used, are they paid features?
Yes. But importantly, again, we're trying to work with CPRA to make it as cost effective as possible and make sure it is best valuable, so ultimately best data. But yeah, there's a couple of things we've been working on to try and keep that price as low as possible.
Yeah, so Jennifer, feel free to reach out to us for pricing on those if you're interested. And then the last question for this segment, Alex, I'll pose is from Amy Buckland, who's asking, is the visit data weighted to represent population or is it pure device counts?
Yeah, it's normalized to represent rural, urban areas, different types of communities. Yeah, that's really important. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the next part, just still on the people section, is around then you've got all this really powerful recreation data within facilities, and are you getting the most out of it? Again, thinking about making resources go further and unlocking funding. So I mentioned this before, we work with lots of different membership management systems, not just the ones listed here, but under a data use agreement, we bring out of those systems just kind of key bits of information that power a lot of powerful insights on behalf of the network. I mentioned about kind of other data sets from organizations like Statistics Canada and other paid for centrally on behalf of this network, other kind of commercial data sets, which allow us to go a little bit further with some of the analytics. So just some of the headline things we do with recreation data, we help organizations double down, focus on their priorities, understand where the growth opportunities are. We look at the customer journey and risk of cancellation and things like that, and using machine learning AI to get ahead of certain kind of risks. We look at optimal programs and maybe things you aren't running already, but are working in a similar community to yours somewhere else in Canada that you could kind of bring in and would engage more members, more users, and keep them active for longer. And then again, coming back to the EDI side and evidencing social value to drive more kind of investment into facilities. So just a few kind of visuals to bring it to life. So this is an example from Toronto, just knowing, again, this is the national database. This is layered on top of that, and the data is linked to a site. So knowing where users come from, this is again coming out of the registration system, all automatically kind of flowing and turned on, but also forecasting where the remaining growth areas are. Where should we be focusing our marketing budget and our outreach services? As a network of 400 organizations, having up-to-date KPIs and benchmarks and trends, what does good look like in terms of engaging people over 65 at the moment, and how are we doing in terms of joiners and leavers? So again, important information that can sit in reports and help influence partners. Also help just to focus where the opportunities are. This is a really good example, kind of on the program side, looking at who's engaged in programs at the moment. And we know people who get engaged in programs stay with facilities for an extra 4 months. So there's a commercial part to this. What programs are working for those types of people elsewhere that you're not currently offering in your timetable? And what should you be bringing in next? So we're not showing you other organizations' data, but we're saying, okay, well, you're a little bit underperforming for people in their 40s. Have you thought about doing more Pilates and HIIT training on a Tuesday at 10 a.m.? It's about visibility beyond your own organization to help improve your own facilities. Again, on the facility side, helping focus marketing budget to get more people. This uses, again, facility data. It goes back to the national database of understanding where your remaining unmet demand is related to where kind of facilities are around your area, um, as well as kind of retention modeling. And finally, this is a release that's just going out, but it's then taking that recreation data and, similar to movement, it's reporting on the equity of access to your facility. But really importantly, it's how representative are the users of the immediate catchment around that facility, and what does good look like? So again, in terms of showing that you are making a difference over time, that you're focusing in reaching maybe sometimes into the harder to reach groups, this is really powerful. So that just gives an idea of how you turn the tap on recreation data, and you can generate a lot of other insights that link to the facilities that are in the national database, but can help kind of drive better decision making and better kind of impact reporting, which was number 3 in the poll earlier. And the last bit, just around partnerships. So this is something that we're working on with CPRA at the moment. It's not live, but we hope it will be coming soon. It's looking promising. And this has been really effective in Australia and the UK. When I talked about the $100 million that was unlocked a couple of years ago, it was because they could talk to the social value, the community savings that were being generated by getting different types of people more active. So it's most relevant to recreation facilities. So CPRA, alongside partners, released measuring impacts a year or so ago, and with the value of activity across Canada, or in terms of the savings, I suppose in health it was 3.9 billion, in terms of the economy 37 billion, which is great at that national level. But what we're doing is that we're then bringing that down and we're connecting it with the data out of the recreation facilities. And what that means, and this is a really good way of explaining it, is a typical 65-year-old female is at risk of these types of things that are linked to being more physically active. So heart disease, breast cancer, bowel cancer, and each one's kind of got a value of having that, and then a likelihood. And by reaching a threshold of activity, which everyone's tracking your facilities, you swipe through, you remember, you're doing different types of activities, you reduce that risk. And by using that data and taking it through this federal model, you can start to provide a scorecard of how much savings you're making from those facilities. So if you're investing in them or you're subsidizing activity, this is a really powerful metric. It also goes into certain service contracts as well. And you can split it down to different areas. So there'll be partners, whether it's provincial, national, that really care about these types of areas. And as an industry, it means we can better connect with those types of partners, often unlocking funding opportunities as well. But to do that, we just need to translate facility information into their language, into kind of government funding language. And then the key bit is, okay, and what's our plan to even grow that social value? And some of the information I showed before, where are we focusing within different types of communities to increase that number next year? And this is why we need this pot of funding to achieve that. So that's everything. There's a huge amount there, and I've gone a couple of minutes over, but hopefully that, to summarize, it's not just about places, the national database. It's about better understanding people as a network, and then unlocking partnerships and value within those partnerships. And that is all about layering data on places and spaces and using the best data and working as a network, because that kind of makes it possible. Stop.
That's amazing, Alex. It's generated a lot of discussion and chat. I know we've scheduled right through till 1 here, so I think the formal presentation is going to be about 45 minutes, but we have a few more minutes to answer questions. We'll do our best to get to all of them. First thing, though, before we do that, I just want a huge shout out to the Canadian Fitness Lifestyle Research Institute and the Measuring Impact Project. Alex just referenced it. I put the links in the chat, so please feel free to look at that. That's all free as well, useful information there, and more news coming on that project soon. A couple of questions from Pam. Does the surrounding roads impact the facility, playground, event usage, user numbers?
Yeah, so that's why the visit reports, it's important you exclude roads. And you can do multiple areas if it's split across a road. But yes, we avoid roads. The activity trends is a bit harder because it's nationwide, but it's that 100 by 100 meter grid. So sometimes it's not possible to avoid roads, but that has a slightly different function anyway. That's just about a more high level understanding of where people are. the visit reports allows you to avoid roads and yeah. Well done.
Kind of a related question, I think Mandeep Baines asks, what is the source for the visitor demographic information?
Visitor demographic information. It is a combination of data sources. So the most granular Canadian statistics data, I think what you're meaning is the data that you attach to movement data to get a profile of those types of users.
I
Because
think
obviously
that's fair.
recreation facilities, most of the demographic information is from the recreation facility. Yeah, that and other licensed data sets, other data sets we bring in at a as granular level as possible, because that really enhances the accuracy. So some
Uh,
government, some paid.
Scott offers a comment further to the question he posed earlier, which is social emotional learning could be another value added for children, so more data that could track on the social value side. Um, and Anna's posing, is this being recorded? And the answer is yes, and we will be sharing it afterwards, including the slides. So thank you for that question, Anna. And Jennifer poses, could the data identify what type of programs could increase engagement of, for example, inactive, less active teenagers or children? I think you kind of touched on that a little bit, Alex.
Yeah, that's yeah. Then we've got there's part of this which is called Acquire, which allows you to really drill down into specific programs for specific types of communities in specific areas. And it's not just drawing on the data you've captured, it is drawing on a network. So ideas that maybe you haven't thought about. And that's the key here. It's taking snippets of things that are really working elsewhere and overlaying them on areas that you look after. Because as an industry, we're just not working effectively as effectively as we could be. But we have the data there. This is just kind of cutting through all of that.
Right, and that's why we're so engaged with it. We want to bring this to the sector for just to the world is changing. We need to have data. We need to be more sophisticated in how we analyze it, how we collect it, how we analyze it, how we share it, and how we share the insights that we garner from it. So that's a big part of what we're doing here. Francis poses, is there a vision on how this database can be used for community health centers, immigration agencies to find communities where sport and rec programs exist to help support community, that kind of thing? So that's kind of a bit of a program question, a bit of, how do I access community health center question. I think the short answer is, well, yes. There's lots of insight that can be gained from the data as it exists and some of the additional data layers. But Alex, you have a additional comment?
No, I think the answer there is reach out to us, get in touch, because really keen to kind of hear a little bit more and then feed that into the roadmap. As I say, this needs to evolve with this network ultimately. So if there are areas that are going to be relevant to most of the network, absolutely. In other places, we have school information layered in. We look at school programs and whether kids are going from them into clubs and whether funding's used effectively there. Trying to think whether we do what we do in the health side, but yes, it's the same. You've got a lot of the data sets already in the melting pot. So if there's one more that needs to be added to give another bit of valuable insight, let us know.
Okay, and I have one last question. I think we will have gotten to most of them. Forgive us if we haven't. Feel free to write to us afterwards as well. info@cpra.ca is a good email address to write, but you also, when you sign up for an account for the website, then there's ability to communicate with Alex and his team, and of course with us here at CPRA. So last question that I have from this mysterious anonymous attendee is, would social value be expanded to visits to parks as well? So I think our social value question, we're trying to figure out how to go forward on that. I don't want to put words in Alex's mouth, but yes, I think we are looking at expanding across all measures of social value.
Yeah, it's like we're talking about the input data being recreation facilities at the moment. But yeah, there's with a few more assumptions made, I could see that working with movement data, so visitors to other types of facilities. It maybe is less precise, but a lot of what's important here is the consistency. A lot of the reporting around measuring impacts, social value, it's making it relative, the outputs. and knowing what good looks like, and also knowing what the potential is in certain locations if things were improved or additional infrastructure was added. So yes, that is it's absolutely on the radar.
Excellent. And then there's a last question, which Jennifer, I would invite you to pose to me directly. You can reach me at martin@cpra.ca. And the question that Jennifer poses is, could CPRA provide aggregate examples of program services facilities that best support various population segments? So I would probably need help answering that, but I think the short answer is to some degree, yes. But again, this is all evolving. So do you have anything you want to add to that, Alex?
No, no, we again in other countries we work with similar organizations to provide annual snapshot reports of trending activities by different demographics, kind of at a national level. Um, yep, yep. There's that gives a kind of initial steer, I guess. And then see a lot of this is then kind of applying it really kind of locally, overlaying that market insight within your facilities. Um, no, I think that's everything. We had another poll, but let's hold on that because I think we're out of
Yeah,
time, and we've kind of
we
answered the first poll anyway. So
well look. So I think let's end with a huge thank you to you, Alex, for running us through this, and a huge thank you to everybody who joined the call. I'm really pleased with how much interest there is on this, and please write to us. Please sign up for your free account. We're doing this together. We want to be working with you. So if you have ideas, thoughts, additional functionality, you want to know more about any of this, please reach out to us directly and we'd be more than happy to engage. But bottom line is go sign up for your free account and get involved in the discussion. Your perspective matters, and we want to obviously be delivering value to you. So thank you very much, Alex. Thank you. Yes, I agree, Maria. This can be so powerful, and that's what we want. We want us all involved together as a community of practice, delivering this data-led decision making. So ultimately we can be better at doing what we all want to do, which is creating healthy, vibrant, resilient communities and the people that live in them. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you again, Alex, for your partnership and your friendship, and we will be back again soon. Keep an eye, we got lots going on at CPRA, cpra.ca. Sign up for our updates, and we always want to hear from you. Merci tout le monde. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.